Welcome everybody. Today I'm going to share 3 real estate hacks that you can use in your real estate career. The first one we use to make a couple $100,000 in a few months. The second one is for builders to hack appraisal values. And the third one is probably the most applicable but can save you thousands of dollars if you're flipping houses. So this first hack, at the end of explaining it, I will give an example of how we made a couple $100,000 in a few months using this. So can you hack a property value to make it go up? The answer is yes. With the right circumstances, you can hack a property value to make it higher. You can do it with one comparable, but it's better with 2. Let me explain. So this happens all the time with investors and with developers. Let's start with investors. If you buy a house and it's a great deal, let's say it's somewhat unique, and it needs some remodeling. Then as you're in the remodeling process, another home comes on the market in the same area that is very similar. And there's not a lot of comps in this area. A lot of investors will call this doubling down. They will buy that property that is cheaper and they will flip 2 homes at once because if that other home sells at a lower price, that would hurt their appraisal. So as they elevate the value of the property by rehabbing it, that makes both of the values go higher. When they sell, one sells, the other one's guaranteed to sell for that much as well. And now we have the first house. Once that's sold, that becomes a comparable property, or what we call in the industry a comp, for the second house. And so you've essentially increased the value of that property by creating your own comp. And let's say you didn't buy that second property and it closed, then the appraiser comes and he says, hey, your property is only worth this because this other home right next door or down the street sold for this lower amount. And then the appraisers, and then the agent's upset, the seller's upset, everybody's upset, you're upset because you can't sell your property for what you thought you could. So let me give you another example of how we made tons of money based on this example. So we bought a mobile home park, and before we bought it, the agent was touting on their appraisal. The mobile home park was just appraised for $400,000. And I said, you know what, can you send me that copy of that appraisal? We might want to make you an offer. So she sent me a copy of the appraisal. I was looking at the appraisal and I realized there's comps 1, there's comp 2, there's comp 3 for this mobile home park. And the number 1 comp, the comp that they had based their whole appraisal around, was another property that we had just bought. And I know that we had bought that property at a discounted price. It was another mobile home park, it was an estate sale, and it was an auction. And there were only 2 people that showed up at the auction. And as you know, auction properties sell for less than other homes that are traditionally on the market for a longer period of time. Auction properties are on the market for a few seconds. So naturally they go for a smaller price because there's less eyeballs looking at it. So anyway, I knew that this property was discounted. There were 2 people at the auction. I raised my hand for the first bid. He bid against me. I kept my hand raised, and he said, you know what, you want this property more than I do. And so I was able to buy that property almost $300,000 below what it was actually worth. And so when we went to buy this new mobile home park, and we saw that comp number 1 was that comp that we had just bought at a $300,000 discount, so we knew that this property was worth quite a bit more. And the reason that this particular property that we bought hadn't sold yet, the one that had the appraisal, was that because it was in an area where there weren't a lot of comps, and I think people weren't sure what the value was. And without doing a full-blown appraisal on the property, which would have taken me hours, I was able to look at the appraisal on the property and realize that appraiser had messed up big time. And so we were able to capitalize on that and get a great deal. And a few months later, the property was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars more than we bought it for. And in reality, we didn't do anything. The value didn't change. The perception changed. So going back to that example of buying 2 homes, if you have one in the market and then another one comes up that may threaten your price, you buy that property, you can control the price. You can keep them both high rather than fighting against each other, trying to race to the bottom to see who can list their home for the least amount. You can control both of those prices. This is called doubling down, or dollar cost averaging, where you're able to buy to mitigate your risk by buying up lower priced properties as you're already into the deal. And so this only works with unique properties or markets where there's not a lot of comparables, but this way you can control the price. So the second hack is for builders, but it may be applicable in other areas if you can get creative. But if you're not curious about how builders hack appraisal values, then go ahead and skip. I'll put a timestamp down below on where you can skip to get right to the last one. So how do builders manipulate and hack the appraisal value or the market? What they'll do, and as I've been playing developer for the past few years, building houses here and there, I've learned some interesting things. So if you're a builder, you're obviously building something where there's a need. You're filling a void in the market for something that didn't exist before. So by nature, you're creating something that doesn't have a lot of comparables. A lot of times developers build in a neighborhood outside the city where there's no other houses, and they're creating the whole community. And that very first home that sells is the hardest one to appraise because the appraiser's got to go to all these different areas and there may not be any good comps close by. So the question is, if you're a builder, are you going to leave this up to chance? So oftentimes what builders will do is they will, on that, especially on that first sale, they may do something like they'll sell it to somebody on owner financing for a short period of time, or they'll wait for a cash transaction, or they may even sell it to another entity that they own and buy it themselves. And what that does is that creates a first comp with no need for the appraisal. And if that's done 1 or 2 times, then they have 2 comps. The appraiser can come in and can look at those 2 comps and see, oh, 2 other of these homes sold. Here's what the third one is. And now that one stands independent and can get a bank loan. And then the next one uses all 3 and so on. And then once there's 3 comps that have already closed that didn't have anything to do with any kind of creative financing, those stand on their own, and these ones can be refinanced. These original 3 can be refinanced and the builder can sell those off. So that's a way for a builder to kind of take control of the situation a little bit. And because there is value in that owner financing, and oftentimes the appraisers don't adjust for it, even though they should. Oftentimes they look at this, they say, this is a new house. You know, they're looking for a way to make this work within the realm of possibilities and within the parameters that the bank has set. Nobody wants to kill a deal if they don't have to. And you'll often notice that an appraisal price will come in exactly at what you're trying, not above or sometimes below, but rarely above what the purchase price is. And the reason for that is, like I said, there's a range of possibilities that the appraiser may come in. And as long as it's within there, he's not going to say, hey, I think your home is worth this much more, because what's the upside to doing that? Say the bank had to foreclose on you because you didn't hold up your end of the obligations. The bank had to take that property back, and they tried to resell it, and they couldn't resell it for what the appraiser said. That puts egg on the appraiser's face, makes them look really bad. So oftentimes they're just going to come right in at that number, at that appraisal price. Now there are a lot of other hacks that I'm going to go into in the future in regards to appraisals, in regards to prices. But for now, know that if you control the comps, you can control the value. Now, a good appraiser would look at that and say, this has favorable financing. I'm not going to give it a whole lot of weight, and they're going to at least find 1 comp from outside the neighborhood to support their value. Most banks, when they create a mortgage, they sell that mortgage off to Freddie or Fannie Mae so they can get their money back and reloan it out to future people. Now, with that being said, Fannie Mae has certain rules, FHA has certain rules in regards to protecting against fraud. Somehow, they think that if you buy a house and you try to sell it within 90 days, that there is something nefarious going on. In reality, I haven't found a good argument to substantiate why this rule exists, other than unintended consequences and people that don't know what they're doing. The FHA flipping rule goes like this. If you bought a property and within 90 days you're trying to sell that property, maybe you've done all your rehabs in a matter of a month and you're trying to resell it, and you get a FHA buyer and it's within 90 days, you can forget about selling that property to the FHA buyer unless you know how to hack the offer. One way to do that is to go into the offer with the understanding that on the 90th day from the day that you bought the property, this contract is going to be canceled. There'll be a new contract offered and accepted by you, and the appraisal will be ordered, and you'll close within about a week. You're into this offer, let's say it's 45 days since the day that you bought it. So you still have another 45 days before you can close, technically. So what you're going to do is that offer comes in, they say, hey, we're going to buy this property at the price you want. We want to close in 45 days. But the problem is the contract cannot be initiated before that 90 days. So what you're going to do is you're going to go in and you're going to say, hey, we're going to accept this offer, but due to the 90-day flip rule, what we're going to do is we're going to run the course of this contract. We're going to do everything we need to do. You're going to get your underwriting. We're going to get the inspections done. Everything's going to be done. And then once that 90 days comes, at that point, we're going to cancel this contract, and we're going to redraw a new contract that'll be accepted by the seller. And at that point, we're going to close in about 7 days. The FHA case number will transfer to that new property. The appraisal will be immediately ordered, and all you're waiting on is the appraisal at that point. Everything else has been done, so you can close on the 91st or the 97th day from buying the property. And that's one way to get around that, because a lot of people will think, oh, I have to wait until 90 days, then I have to wait another 30 days to close on this property because there are loan things involved. So that's one hack that you can use to circumvent that 90-day rule or curtail that, and rather than being 120 days, you can cut it down to about 97. Depending on how quickly you can get the appraisal. Thanks everyone for watching my video on 3 real estate hacks. I've got plenty more to come. So if you like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel or like the content, or give a comment down below and let me know of other hacks that you know that you'd like me to expound upon on my next video. I was gonna say something funny.